lot, she's on a corner lot.
Yeah,
but
there you go.
We can split it. The neighbors will quit speaking to us, but you know, that's all right.
They might like the house, you never know. They might like the, you could talk to them about it and see.
Or if I built it, it'd be pretty.
Yeah.
So my next question is, and this is not directly tied to what you're doing, but I know previously members of the Planning and Zoning Board were not only given the opportunity, but they were kind of required to attend this Georgia Municipal Training for
Yep.
Planning and Zoning.
Doing it now, I was there yesterday.
You were there? Okay, is
Yep.
everybody going to be doing that now?
It's not
Everybody on the
required.
Planning and Zoning?
It's not required, it's just offered, and 2 of us are doing it now.
I did it last year.
Okay, well, are we anticipating the whole P and Z?
I can't say what somebody else is going to
Okay, well, there's a thought to put into the sweeping zoning changes that maybe you could require P and Z members to have attended the zoning.
That's certainly something.
I
because
think
what
that's
they have put in,
definitely,
I
because
don't-
right now we have people like creating this stuff.
People like me that don't know what we're doing.
That haven't done it before. And then, okay, so my next question is going to require me reading just a little bit, but I promise there is a question involved. And this is from the Clarkston City website, Code of Ordinance, Section 703, NR-3, High Density Neighborhood Residential District. It says purpose and intent that NR3 zoning is intended for single-family and multifamily residences at a greater density on smaller lots in order to provide a variety of housing types, including townhomes, cluster homes, condominiums. This district may also serve as a transitional zone between light commercial office uses and districts reserved for lower density, single-family uses. So it's like a step-down housing from like town center to NR2 and NR1. Permitted uses are single-family detached residential dwellings. Number 2, multifamily residential dwellings, which includes duplexes, triplexes. Use number 3, townhomes. Gives several definitions of those. And then requirements from those. All townhomes must have a community association, guest parking, and required recreation areas to communities like that. And accessory structures. Goes into definitions of lighting and accessory structures and square footage requirements. And nowhere in it does it say anything about any commercial use. So my question is this: which city code are you reading, and that goes to Shawana as well, that says it allows banks, barber shops, all of this in NR3?
Those are proposed changes.
Okay, but in the current one,
In the current one, it's just transitional to commercial use. It does allow apartments, but not.
it's strictly residential
Right,
now.
yeah.
Right.
It is strictly residential.
Right.
Those changes were to allow for some commercial.
And
activity.
we said before, I was saying NR3,
Okay.
and you said yes, thanks.
Okay,
So
well, I
that
think
was
Those were
false.
the changes.
That was the changes. I'm
Those
sorry.
were the
But there won't
changes.
be NR3 with the changes.
Yes,
There
there will.
will.
There will still be NR3.
NR3 isn't getting combined with the other districts. NR3 is still staying separate.
It's just.
Okay, but it's going to be like what
Higher
neighborhood
density.
commercial is now.
It's, well, yeah, it won't be as much developed as neighborhood commercial. It's limited to just like neighborhood businesses, like the barber shop, like the coffee shop.
That is what
Like
neighborhood
bank.
commercial is designated for
Right.
now. Small businesses for a service to the immediate residential community. That is
Right.
neighborhood commercial.
Right, so since NR3 allows for multifamily and apartments, and there are apartments in NR3 in Clarkston right now, it basically allows for some small businesses to come in and service those apartments.
Not legally.
Well, it says multifamily right now, it's allowed. I know it's technically not apartments, but in reality, there are apartments in NR3 that have been grandfathered in.
Apartments are allowed in NR3. Commercial businesses
Well, it
aren't
says
allowed in
it says
NR3
multifamily,
currently.
Yeah,
Multifamily housing is definitely one of the intended uses and currently allowed uses. Nothing commercial
Can I
is
ask-
currently allowed.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And this is just in general. So taking notes, and I understand that it's a big change, and I get that.
Mhm.
I've been doing a lot of researching and looking into this and what other cities are doing and what the trends in other cities and the trends in development are, the trends in housing purchases. So, and what is out there is it's sort of two big things that are going on. And I'm talking like everywhere, not just Atlanta metro region, but like countrywide, is that there's a real move away from isolated zoning units into exactly what we're talking about, which is more of a combined zoning. Because there's a real trend as we are getting more urban, that people are buying, all the housing trends are smaller lots. There a spike in purchases of things like townhomes and developments that have very small yards, if any. The house sizes are getting a bit smaller as well in the trends it's purchasing. Now, you can tease out a lot of that information. Is it because folks can't afford bigger homes? Maybe. Is that because folks don't want to maintain bigger homes and lots?
Did you have
Maybe.
a question for me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so my question is, with all of this going on and making these changes is a big deal, I get that. If instead of reducing it down by 50%, all right, instead of saying 5, currently they're 10,000, proposal is 5, we meet in the middle at 7. Is that an acceptable change?
I will be honest with you. I like Clarkston. I have always liked Clarkston. I've lived here since 2011, so 8 years, a lot less than some. I think Clarkston is a great little city. I think we have and have had a really good city government. I think a lot of what's good about it has been the zoning has created this environment. I think when you live in a traditionally 1 square mile, actually 1 round mile town, you have to be very careful of those step-down districts. If we have, this section is residential and this section is commercial, and the commercial is pretty much anything that goes commercial, and the residential is pretty much anything is residential, we don't have enough space to be like that. Like, we need to be very when you have 10 people living in a small house, you might know, you have to be respectful of one another. You have to have boundaries. And I think pulling out all the boundaries between NR1, NR2, and NR3, between NC1, NC2, NC3, is a really bad idea. It's yanking out the boundaries that are keeping us from bumping into each other and knocking each other out. And I also think if it's going to be done, it needs to be done mindfully, carefully, and you said yourself, you've just done the training yesterday. And I'm pretty sure, I know you're an amazing person, but you didn't come up with all this last night. So most of the planning has been done by people who haven't even had preliminary planning and zoning training yet, by an expert whose degree is not in urban planning, but economics.
Land use economics.
Land use economics. Well, that's not actually what's on his degree, it's just economics. But
Okay.
the thing is, I know Susan, who just left, her degree was not in international diplomacy. I'm very clear on that. She gets very emotional. But she does have a master's degree in urban planning and 20 years experience, which is why she gets emotional. Because she sees sweeping changes being made by people who are untrained, by experts who aren't experts, by people then who say, well, I've chosen not to listen to my own self-designated expert and do it all as one sweeping change, because I think it'll work better, even though I think that was one point that Nick was completely right on. Do it piece by piece, or it's going to be a disaster. And then you don't listen to the recommendations of your city manager who says, why don't we hire a professional firm to do this?
Thank you.
I'm just not sure what you're doing. And now you say, well, let's just take what's NC1. Let's take what we have now as NC3 and make it NC1. Let's take neighborhood commercial and make that NR3. Let's take town center and make it the whole darn town. I'm not sure why you're doing this. I just don't know what you're doing. That's all.
So if the recommendations came from
Now, this, wait a minute.
Kimberly and
Stop-
Kate.
Stop setting up these straw man arguments.
Thank you.
Stop.
Yeah.
Just stop
Thank you.
that.
Thank
We got
you.
what we got, and that's what we're working with.
But you're not, that's my
No, we
point.
got
is
what we
that
got, and this is what we're working with.
We're trying to work with it, that's my point.
We're
is
not
that-
feeling
No,
that
you're
way,
not.
though.
You've
We're
asked
not
this
feeling
question
that way.
before, you've said, what if we went through all the hoops and checks and balances and came up with the same conclusion? Well, let's not do all that, let's just have the same conclusions. That is a false, straw man argument that you should have just abandoned.
Jamie and I came to
Among
perfect
others.
agreement on one thing. If, you know, that idea is a good idea. It really doesn't matter the source. I don't consider this Nick person somebody who's an expert on planning and zoning, A, because his degree's not in that, and B, because he's never done it as a career. But I read the report and there were some good things in there. One of them was, this has to be done on a piece-by-piece basis. Or, you know, it will get through because we've shown city, we can get up and speak and it's gonna be ignored anyway, but there will be blowback down the line. There will, because I think Clarkston zoning, the step down, is good. I think it's good. I think what we need is revitalization of the commercial zones we have,
Thank
not
you.
to make the whole town commercial.
Thank you.
So let me ask you this, if we were to, you know, stop the process right here, I'll have a heart attack.
You shouldn't have a heart attack, you should be open to hearing it.
Hold on, if we stop the process right now, and instead we did just a piece of the report, okay, say we do this piecemeal, what would it be that, because I'm trying to find a way that I don't want you as a community to feel that you're being run over by a bus, you're being ignored, you're not being heard. That's not what I want to happen. So part of the reason I've been doing research for the last several weeks on this is every time somebody makes a complaint, I go and I look it up. And I find out what all the other trends are and what the data shows behind it, okay? So I'm curious, if we did this piecemeal, let's say we start with the residential districts, would that be okay? If we just did that piece,
That's the part you're gonna get pushback on.
okay? So
I would start with the notifying the neighborhood of zoning changes. That you can pass next meeting. There's at least 30 things in there you could pass at the next meeting.
all right, so the hangup isn't, the hangup isn't that we're making a lot of changes, the hangup is a specific change.
You're making the wrong
There's a
changes.
couple
plan to
changes
address
that are
those
deal
issues.
killers.
You're
There's a
making
couple
the wrong
changes there that say
changes.
vote the whole thing. If it's all or nothing, there's a couple changes in there that say then it's gotta be done.
Okay, sorry, I
Go
apologize.
And I
ahead.
plan to address those issues.
All right.
I have a couple of questions. I'll probably forget some things. But I see that 40 Oaks and Friendship Forest are currently in low residential. Does that mean that those two nature preserves are actually in play to become developments?
No,
No.
those are city property, they wouldn't get
So
that.
those are set aside?
Yeah,
Okay, and the other thing is, we're at the end of Rayford Trail. Rayford Trail and Mock Street are arguably even more than East and Jolly, not Jolly, what? Poplar. More, bigger lots, I mean, we're on 4 acres at the end of the dead end. And that is a nature preserve. We live on a 4-acre nature preserve. And you're proposing changing that to commercial, residential commercial. So, wait, please, let me finish.
Yeah.
So if we sold that property, some developer could come in and clear cut that 4 acres and put in, I mean, why would we want to turn Clarkston into Brookhaven and Decatur? I mean, every corner,
You're not listening.
Wait a minute, you're
I
not
think
listening.
you're in NR3.
You're in NR3 right now.
right, and you're proposing turning it into,
No, we're in our CD.
we're NRCD currently,
Are you?
yes.
Wayford Trails looks like it's
At the
NR3.
end, we're at the end, we're at the end of the dead end, the road.
Oh,
ends
yeah,
there.
you're in that, they're.
And you're proposing changing that to residential commercial.
Well, right now, your neighborhood commercial.
I mean, right now you could be an apartment complex.
Yeah,
Well, next to us is English Oaks, but we've
Yeah.
got,
And the
you
developer,
could be an apartment complex now.
the developer could buy you and turn you into an apartment complex. if you wanted.
exactly, why would you
But
want
That's the
that?
status quo, that
You
can be
could
done
now.
now.
You could do that now.
That's allowed now.
That is
That's
allowed.
allowed now.
Yes.
Right, I
You wouldn't
can,
be affected.
but they're talking
Yeah.
about changing it.
This is your property.
Right.
And it's-
And they're talking about
You already
changing
could be,
it
you
to
could be an apartment complex right now.
residential
We
commercial.
become first.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But you could be an apartment complex right now. If you sold to a developer, they could make you an apartment. That's
Okay.
status quo.
Okay.
I'm just saying right now that could happen if you wanted.
Okay, gotcha. So, but I just don't understand why the push to turn Clarkston into Brookhaven. I mean, do you see the ugly condo complexes that are going in on every square inch old church lot in Decatur? I mean, our infrastructure, their infrastructure can't support that development now. Our infrastructure cannot support the kind of development that this would bring. I just think it's too sweeping changes that, I think it needs to be done incrementally, and it doesn't have to be done all now. And so one other quick question, if we're changed to residential commercial, that means if we personally wanted to build a small business on our property, that would be permissible?
It's currently permissible.
There's already,
It's already permissible on your
If
property
I
for
want
you
to
to
put
do
in a
that.
boarding kennel down there, that's,
well, NRCD already allows for some business use, so you already could do it.
Yeah.
but then you're gonna change the rest of Rayford Trail and Mott Street into a residential commercial. All I'm saying is people move to Clarkston because of the way Clarkston is, and just because other people want smaller lots and higher density, there's a lot of places they can go. And there's smaller parts of Clarkston, like you could tear down Town Center and turn it into Decatur if you want, you know, and put in residential, commercial, like they have over in Decatur and up in Brookhaven. I just think, I mean, I'm not opposed to any change at all. I just don't want to see Clarkston become Decatur and Brookhaven. Thank you.
Jane, you claim that there's some popularity somewhere, like it's going to show up at the next work session. Can you identify any citizens that you know of who are for these changes?
I've talked to a lot of people who don't want to necessarily speak in public because they get told things like we're trying to destroy the city. So I think some of that rhetoric does deter people from speaking in public, but I think there will be some people that speak in public and you can come talk to them at the next work session or.
Well, I've never seen any. Do you know any? Can you identify any in this room?
I don't want to out people, let them identify themselves. They want to do
Behind
their
you,
I'm partly in favor of this. I want to see change.
well, we all do want to see change too. I
I wanna
just
see
think we want to make sure
And
that
I think there are people that favor a lot of elements of it. Even in this room, I think there are people that favor some elements and may disagree with other elements. So I don't think that's uniform
Yeah, I
opposition.
have a couple more questions, and I'll try to keep to the rules of question asking format. Okay, so the city manager advises an additional study that's professional. Do you lean towards his advice?
Well, we are taking other steps. We are talking to Carl Benson Institute, and they are reviewing the
That's not my question.
So I think that is,
Confirm that.
I think that is an example of how we're taking his advice and taking other steps. We're also having other, you know, we're having architects look at it right now, so we are taking other steps to try to fulfill that advice. I mean, I feel like everyone is talking about Nick Zayak, and his report is a big part of it, but he's not the only person that we've consulted on this. So it's not just a one person, we did everything he said. There's a lot of other elements that we.
So there are other people out there that are giving casual or formal input to you people that haven't been identified to us, correct?
The Carl Benson Institute is just one I.
I do not think that that's what the city manager had in mind when he said professional study.
Really?
Do you lean towards what the city manager has suggested you do?
Well, I feel like that we have had a professional study and we're also being other.
No, you're not answering my, more like a yes or no is what I mean, or, it seems like you're avoiding my
I'm not trying to
question.
avoid your question. I'm explaining to you what we've done and I believe has fulfilled the spirit behind what the city manager is asking. So,
Professional means paid.
no, not necessarily.
So you,
Clarkston gets pro bono professional help all the time. If they
so are you, let me rephrase the question. So are you leaning towards, or are you not leaning towards an additional professional study with some contractual compensation with a group, hopefully local, that you would identify and for us to meet with citizens and council and P&Z in like a charrette manner?
We are looking at options for that. I can't say that the council has approved that right now.
Is money a concern to you? The cost of it?
It all depends on how much money, right? I gotta be responsible with the tax dollars. I think that, for a certain price, it may be, there are options we're looking at.
Okay, what do you feel like would be an acceptable budgetary amount to pay for such a study?
Well, it all depends what you get, right? If you get, a very extensive, comprehensive, really long study, it would be very expensive.
Can you throw out some numbers, dollar numbers?
Well, some cities, for example, larger cities, spend like $500,000 or millions of dollars over years to hire professional firms. So smaller cities generally spend much smaller amounts. It really depends.
So I'm sure you must have a feeling for, or maybe you haven't thought about it, for what dollar figure amount would be okay for this city to absorb and not break the budget?
Well, $1 million would not be okay.
From what, okay, it's not $1 million, how about $10? Is $10 too much?
I could probably fund that.
Okay, so we're somewhere in between $10 and $1 million. All right, how about $50,000?
I could not front that, but I don't really think we get
No,
anywhere.
no, I'm asking questions, I'm keeping to format, and I'm occupying at least 1/20th of the time that Susan Hood did. So, how about $50,000?
I could not front that, no. But that's, I
How
think we're
about,
probably,
how does $20,000 sound?
I think that's still quite a bit. I mean, we've looked at options for a few $1,000s. We've spoken to some consultants for that would review, and it just depends on how extensive the review is. Obviously, the more extensive you get, the more expensive it is. So we have looked at those options, and we still may have someone come and do a computation for that amount and have them available.
For what amount?
Well, it just depends on what is done. We don't have a final amount.
Right. I have a feeling you're leaning towards about $10,000, and I don't know what you can get for $10,000.
That's not gonna do it.
It's not gonna hurt Clarkston paying $10,000, and I think you could probably get something for $10,000. We have nothing now, because I believe that Nick Zayak has been fairly well, say, discredited or delegitimized, except for maybe that one glowing statement about, that it should all be more of a piecemeal arrangement, which is what so it's more like, with the one good thing he has had to say that we like, he's on our side with that one good thing. All right, let me see, I think I have a question or two more. All right, so I like the way that we have pulled out this discussion about having another professional pay attention. I actually have conflict of interest here insofar as I live on a piece of property, NR3, which I conceivably could put a little store on, and your decision, if you get it, if you do this in its sweeping manner, could double the value of my property. And that's something for me to consider. But my head is complicated, and I consider also the concerns of my neighbors who might like to see that kind of thing on my property. So money isn't everything. Money isn't everything to me, but I wanted to let you know that I sometimes have to deal with the conflict of interest in
Well,
my
Chris,
own.
one of the things we talked about on the phone that you may like is it does allow temporary permits for storage of some construction equipment
Yeah.
and for some of the zoning enforcement issues. So you can get a permit under the proposed zoning reform that would allow that and would let you not have to deal with code enforcement. So that, I think a lot of people that have, we haven't gotten the code enforcement portion yet, but a lot of people have issues with code enforcement may be able to go to the city, get a permit to use their property in a particular way and avoid having the conflict with tickets and things like that. So
Another one, couple more questions. Have there been any outside influences on this idea of yours that you haven't told us about?
What do you think? Outside
You think he's gonna
influences?
answer
Conflict
that?
of interest.
You really believe
I
that?
read a lot of articles about zoning and urban reform to this count.
Do you recommend, another question?
I have talked to
You're,
you.
Amy, you're on P&Z.
I am.
you're on P and Z, do you recommend any pay increase for P and Z? That's a loaded question.
No, I don't even have any way to answer that question. I am a volunteer, so, I mean, I'm paid by the city because to show up, but I don't have any say on that.
Isn't that too low, $50 to show up to a meeting?
I am not gonna comment on that at all. That's not my place.
Your body of
Right.
6 people is at least as important as the city council.
I'm not saying it's
And
not.
you get paid nothing. City councilman gets paid $3,500 a year.
I am,
In my opinion, you don't want to say, you don't think you should
Chris,
have
I
any
did
pay
this,
increases.
I opted to do this job before I even knew you got paid. So
Well,
I'm really the bad person. I'm not the person.
I'm glad you love it enough. I'm glad you love it enough, well enough to be a volunteer. But my point is, probably the most important, next most important body of decision makers or recommenders in this city serving in an unprofessional capacity makes for a very weak body.
Well, yes and no. I'm gonna say that I've done a lot of research. I haven't, there's a lot of comments I still have to make on this zoning reform. I haven't formed any official opinions on loving this zoning reform, and there's a lot of things I think I would encourage all of you to please come out to the P&Z meeting on Tuesday when we discuss this, to put in your input for the whole board. The board has a lot to discuss and input to put in on this before it's in its final form. So don't get married to something that P&Z still has input on and has recommendations for.
Okay, one more question, only one. Have you thought, either of you two, of any conceivable, hypothetical, catastrophic occurrence that could result as a result of the adoption of the zoning reform changes as you want them? Have you thought of
The
any?
worst case scenario, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
I have.
I've thought about it.
Where you could have many citizens like who are sitting here very, very, very angry with you?
Oh no, in my worst case scenario, somebody shows up and buys everything
Turns it into a strip mall.
and turns the whole, well, you can't because that's not in the zoning code, not even in the changes. But, and then like everything gets developed except that one little point, like that's the worst case scenario in the whole world. Do I really think that's gonna happen? No.
Well, I would suggest considering
In the worst case scenario, we end up looking more like
the
downtown.
spin-off, consider this, and I'm done, but consider the spin-off effects of what you're proposing, which could have a lot of people angry. More angry with you than they are
I'm
now.
not sure there could be more
Is that
people
possible?
more angry.
Yeah, you know, people can buy property and ask for variances because, you know,
But they don't necessarily get them.
I think they've got pretty strong grounds for
That's
arguing about that.
They can, but you're not ever guaranteed it.
It's very high legal standard to get a variance. It's basically necessity. You can't have any other option. Maybe, Debbie's waited a long time.
Necessity has a very broad definition for many people here.
Yeah.
Let's be respectful,
Debbie's
it's your
waited a long
turn.
time, so.
I'm sorry, it's your turn.
Am I supposed to lower this?
Yes, please.
Yeah, just move it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Debbie Gaffman, I live on Mill Avenue. I have a very short thing, 2 short things. I kind of support some change. When I moved here, my goal was to have a walkable life. It is not walkable. Not even, you can't even joke about that on Ponce de Leon, where the curbs have been broken for like ever.
I know.
And so it's not walkable. And we've had people hit by cars. And I feel, that was my goal, was to find a city that was walkable. There are lots of people walking here, but they're taking their lives in their hands to do it often. So I want to see change. I want to see more walkability. I want to be able to walk 3 blocks to something. I want destination places to walk to. Living on Mel, to walk to the library, I got to cross some hard streets there. And you got to climb over the railroad tracks, which is a giant mess. And that railroad tracks make this place less walkable. I'm done with that speaking. So I do, I am somebody who supports change. I wanna see more walkability, I wanna see more destinations to walk to. I'm looking at other cities because of that. I want a different, I'm old, I'm 142. Yeah, so I wanna be able to walk places.
What do you think about wider sidewalks?
Oh God, I don't understand why they didn't do that this time.
Yeah, I would like wider
See,
sidewalks
okay.
because of the wheelchair issue, because I
That-
used to
well,
work
it's
for concrete
strollers.
change.
You know, with strollers and wheelchairs.
Yeah, everybody's
they
about
can
Missed
this
an
strollers,
opportunity
yeah.
to make them wider this time when we were doing all the sidewalks.
Yeah.
We stick to
Yeah, I
the
think
issue.
wider, I think the
So
wheelchair
like a
issue is
6
huge
foot,
for me,
it's
yeah.
like a 6, okay.
But I'm done with that.
Sorry.
So walkability is a big issue for me, so I do want to see some change. I want to walk somewhere. I don't want to walk all the way to the court, to Market Street to get a cup of coffee. I mean, I wish Chris would open up a hardware store on his property. Yay! I'm all over the hardware store. And I'd like a variance so my chickens can run around the front yard, so write that down somewhere. So, those are my issues that I really do want to see change. But I want to say this. Somebody, that was you, that talked about respectful boundaries. This is a huge issue for me. I want to say this in a kind way. It feels like sometimes the city council panders to businesses in a way that hurts the people that live here. And I will give 3 great examples. No, I'll only give 2 because I want to talk short. Number 1, the vaping that they chickened out on, that made me just furious because I'm near one of those nutty vaping places where I hate that, and it's not good for our neighborhood, it's not healthy, it's all over the newspaper about how dangerous it is. Now they're trying to make it so teenagers can't even buy that stuff. And we said, oh, we were gonna make you guys shut down, but now, because so many people stood up at the microphone, we chickened out. And I was very angry about that, because I thought that didn't serve the public, it served those businesses who couldn't come up with another reason to rent a business space. Because vaping doesn't cost them very much. Number 1. Number 2, the second one, moving the drinking. I know some of you guys love to drink at 4 o'clock in the morning, but not me. And I don't want to live near a place that drinks at 4 o'clock in the morning. And now Ponce, a lot of places are now allowed to say, oh yeah, you're super drunk in DeKalb County at 2 o'clock, come on over to Clarkston and get drunker until 4:30. Give me a break. That was not,
PD picks them up.
that was not for
That
health.
doesn't make a difference, it's drinking and driving.
Yeah,
We're
it's
voting
not-
drinking and driving.
Yeah, it's not healthy, it's not good for the neighborhoods, and if we're gonna be walkable, we don't want a bunch of DeKalb County drunken people driving across line so they can drink until 4:30. I was horrified when we passed that. I couldn't believe it. I was astounded because those 2 things were pandering to businesses. I don't care, I don't care. I know they wanna make money. I know they wanna make money. No, it's not a variance, it was a code, it's a code? It's a code.
Ordinance change.
It's an ordinance change, it's not a big, no, variance and an ordinance change. Yeah.
It was an ordinance.
But I think it's a terrible idea, and I don't care if 14 cops stay there from, 2:30 to 4:30, I don't care. I just think it's a bad policy. It's bad for our citizens, and I live near both of those, a wacky vaping place, and somebody who can now sell liquor until 4:30. I don't like it, I don't think it's good for the neighborhood, and that's what I mean by being respectful of boundaries. I would be ecstatic if Barry would sell his silly property and build townhouses, and they would have a pool and let the neighborhood use it, and they would have, coffee shops on the bottom level, or maybe a Subway, I don't even know about something, but a sandwich shop or something. I would be great with that. But if they're gonna put in a vaping place, I'm not gonna be great with that. And if they're gonna put in a liquor, a bar, and they're gonna sell till 4:30, I'm not gonna be great with that. So I think every ordinance has to be considered in light of our new change. If we're gonna dip commercial, the toe into commercial stuff, then we'll have to really look at those kind of ordinances, because that's key to livability. And I know, having lived in DC, that there are plenty of cities that have cool little bodegas in neighborhoods. You can walk down and get a loaf of bread, you can walk over and get a cup of coffee, or you can get weird meatballs made out of 14 different kinds of ingredients. And that was kind of neat, that they carefully looked at liquor sales after midnight, and they carefully looked at the vaping kind of thing, some other stuff, tattoo parlors. Any place that can be open till 4:30 in the morning in the middle of the neighborhood is noisy and drivey. And we already have those stupid speed bumps coming. So now we'll have drunken people driving down Mill Avenue because it's gonna hook up to Northern, coming off Memorial. We'll have drunken people driving down over speed bumps that are prettily painted. but I just think it's ridiculous. So we gotta, from here on out, I will support much more commercial in neighborhoods because I grew up with that, and I'm actually part of the time in Clarkston. But I grew up with that, I'm good with it, but then we have to look carefully at what the businesses are, and we have to look carefully what the rules are. I propose every single meeting, because I can be nutty this way, to roll that liquor thing back to 2:30. I thought that was a terrible idea, and seeing it in action just in the short time it's been okay, I still think it's a terrible idea.
Well, I think it's a great comment to review those, should businesses come into neighborhoods? Because right now, we're all talking hypotheticals. Nobody's knocking on your neighbor's door to sell and turn into, you know, a restaurant.
I might be selling eggs.
But you know what I mean, like, they're not doing that yet, but I
You
think
might
that's,
have a home-based egg business.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
I think it's a good point to rethink some of those things
Well, to think
as
about what
the development
businesses,
comes.
but I mean, you gotta
What's there?
support business. I mean, we're entrepreneurs, this is America. But you can't support a business that you think would damage the neighborhood. So I think this has always been a tricky thing that we've talked about a lot. Emmanuel and I have talked about this a lot. I know that you can't tell people what to open. But we have, you know, a gazillion grocery stores. Give me a break. I don't want to see one more grocery store opening up on Montreal. That's just ridiculous. I'm done with it. But we can't tell people what to open, but we can also give some sort of tax
Guidance.
incentive for somebody to
Give
open up
guidance.
a hardware store or a bookstore or something that we want.
Yes.
Maybe a sundries place that isn't Family Dollar or Dollar General.
Please not Family Dollar.
Yeah, something else, something that would be serving us, maybe even little bodegas. I would be okay with
Yeah.
that. But
That's
I'm not
definitely
okay with another grocery store. And I get what Emmanuel said, he said people rent the property, it's commercial, they can open up whatever they want. But other cities have done this where they've said, hey, this is what we need.
That's for sure.
And I know
That's right.
Lawrenceville did that.
What's the
Because they,
question?
That's
so
right.
the question is, can that be part of the code to examine the whole, sorry, you're right, no question, but you hear what I said. I want you to
Yeah.
rethink some of the business rules if we're gonna become, and, because I can be a staunch supporter of change, because I want it walkable and I want it to be fun to live here, but I can't support any more vaping any longer. I mean, may as well just drink liquor from midnight to midnight, and that's kind
Yeah,
of
so I
ridiculous.
think as we get to more mixed use and neighborhood commercial, we can rethink that. And part of that is, if you do it within the neighborhood, you have to have the planned unit development so that the city can actually approve, has to actually approve the planned unit development, so the city can say, no, you can't bring a drinking place or a vaping place
Oh.
inside the neighborhood.
I didn't know you could say that.
Yeah, because the planned unit development has to be approved by the council, so we have the ability to do that. So,
But I think we need to make sure that it's already in there before we step forward with this.
Yeah, I don't
because
think
it's a sweeping
you can
change.
now. I don't think you can now, right?
well, right now you
You
can't,
can
right now you
deny,
can't do anything at all in the neighborhood, but
I mean, you can't tell a commercial place what to be. Like, that guy on Montreal could open a strip joint.
As long as he meets your
No,
requirements.
No, that's not a permitted use there. We have permitted uses.
Oh, okay.
And not permitted use.
Yeah.
22 years for sidewalks.
I want sidewalks. But I want chicken eggs too, so.
And I don't really have questions that really
I
need
like
to be answered, but I'd like to put the thoughts out there. As Laura said, there's respect for people around you and everything else, et cetera. And based on what Nick said, he did come up with having it be a phased-in situation as opposed to grand sweeping as this plan is. And I think maybe, why would you not take a look at, let's say, what they tried to do with Memorial Drive overlay, when they tried to do those 6 districts, and there was horrendous pushback and public dismay, and the public was totally against it. And they decided to do it with that one phase, the Kensington phase. Let's see how that is. And then they're gonna see how Kensington works out, and then they're gonna talk about the other phases. Why would we not consider doing the same thing to basically not do a total sweep, but let's see if we can manage this, and let's see if this is going to be successful for the city, and then let's step forward and we'll try the next step. I understand you've been doing these quote-unquote public meetings since August, but they have not been well attended
Or well announced.
or well announced.
Yeah.
This one here is not well attended either. I mean, Lisa and I, how many? 1,200, 1,500 flyers that we put out for people?
Not for this meeting.
No, not for this meeting, but for other meetings.
Yeah.
And that's what really got a lot of people, I met a lot of neighbors I've never met before by doing that whole thing. That's not been done. The advertisement's not been done, but I'm asking why.
The next door said it was 10 to 12 today, because that's why I came at 10. So.
I posted 9 to 12. I know that
Okay.
I'm doing your advertising for you,
But
but.
can I ask you one thing on the phases?
Mhm.
I hear that, you know, it can be hard, you know, sometimes easing a Band-Aid versus ripping it off is better. That's fine. What, if we do this, if we were to do this in phases, my question is, what phase would be, I mean, do you guys want to start the phase? I don't think that's, you know, like, what phase would you like to see being first?
But I think that's the thing is, me personally, I don't have and I'll be honest, I'm not as, well-informed and knowledgeable, let's say, as Susan, or even you guys on some things, okay? But I just think that facing and how we're doing this mass production that we have going on in Decatur and the mass production that we have going on in Brookhaven and stuff like that, I don't think we as residents in this area want to become another Brookhaven, and we don't want to become another Decatur. We don't want to become another Church Street over there by Church in North Decatur and have all this massive construction and everything, et cetera.
But see, I can tell you guys, we will never be Decatur.
Oh, but no,
And we don't, because we don't have the county seat.
But that's
We
not
don't
what-
have what they have.
understand that that's
to
not
make
what's
it.
being presented here, because even if you go down to Poplar and to East Ave, his whole thing is he wants to get the leftover Decatur people. That's what his goal is, to get the leftover Decatur people. So I think the thing is, what I'm asking is, let's take a look at it and take a step back, just like DeKalb County did. And we all say sometimes DeKalb County can be screwed up. But that one thing that they did, instead of doing all 6 phases, that there was such opposition to, that doing it by the Kensington overlay and getting that into place. Now, that was a group decision as to which overlay that they were going to do. We haven't even had a group decision on all of
So
this
which
yet.
phase would you recommend first?
I'm not sure. That's the thing. Is let's figure out as a town so that we can make sure that we're going to have good growth and we're going to have positive growth. And you know what? It might be, let's do the phase of childcare. We all know that there are a lot of kids that are locked-in kids, the kids that come home from school and sneak inside to their houses because there's nobody taking care of them, little 7-year-olds and 6-year-olds and stuff like that, et cetera, and they're not being taken care of. I've lived here for 20 years and that was going on in my neighborhood, and they didn't even have keys to the houses. They knew which windows that they could climb into. 2 daughters that I fostered, that's how she got home from kindergarten. Her mother would lock her out while she went shopping, and she knew which windows she could pry open and climb into, and that's when she was 5 years old, okay? And we all know that's happening because childcare is not, let's do childcare maybe. Let's do an A, just for an example. There are certain things that we can phase in that I think that would probably still be beneficial. It could be a small shop, it could be a small business. But let's as a group decide, just as they did with the Kensington overlay. They decided as a group as to what ones that they would be willing to put into that overlay. Let's see if it works. But we're not doing that here. We're just doing a sweeping change. And as a result, I think you're hitting a lot of opposition because of the massive change. And Jamie,
Correct.
if you're seeing other people and you're talking to other people, having not advertised that, that's a mistake. Because we're only getting the belief that you're getting advice from one person, and that's it, okay? So you talking to other people and getting other opinions that are not being presented here is not being helpful. Because we're only seeing, I'm not expecting an answer on that. That's just my viewpoint, all right? But I think that what I would ask of council, I would ask of planning and zoning, I would ask of city manager, I would ask of Schwanna. Let's sit down as a group and decide, what are we going to phase in? What would be the best phase in? What would be most beneficial? It could be having childcare, it could be having a small doctor's office, it could be having a small business that would be beneficial to the, not vaping, but like a bakery.
we
making,
can let a bank come.
we can let a bank come, is what I'm saying,
So that-
but we
that's
don't
one
even
of
have
the
an
changes.
ATM here.
Right.
Unless I don't know
You
where there's an
actually
ATM.
do
I have to go
have
to.
Yeah, we do have ATM.
Where is it?
Where is it?
In the shopping center.
Yeah, it's in the shopping center, but you have to
So
go
let me,
in
add-
the
let me,
stores to-
so really what you're saying, and if I'm getting it wrong, that's why I'm asking, is I want to clarify to make sure I'm hearing and understanding what you're saying. Really, your idea of a phase one would be more town center business type focused changes. Because all of your examples, the only reason I say that is your examples are things that include businesses and business style development. Because we can't make, okay, allow childcare and then, you know, have another 12 months of discussion to allow a bank. We have
You
to
can't.
kind of make
You
a
can.
group of
You
changes
can.
at one time. Otherwise, this process is never ending and people get exhausted and they
No,
quit technology.
That's what government is.
It's never
But-
ending.
But I want to address this issue.
Well,
You need to go get in line.
You can go get in line.
I'm in line, I just want to hear other people.
Well, the one thing I would say is that I think a lot of these changes kind of fit together. Because like, for example, let's say a bank. I think there's pretty much consensus that everyone would like to at least have the option of a bank within Clarkston. And that's one of the things that
Our
would be
bank's
allowed.
left.
What's that?
Our bank left.
Right.
It's the church across the
Right.
street.
Yeah.
No, the bank used to be the strip joint.
No, the
No, it
bank
was
was
Citizens
across the
Bank of
street.
Clarkston.
No, it was.
I
the
saw
same.
Carlos cross.
There was one there too, there was one there too.
Yeah.
But there was
Yeah.
also
So it
one
used to be a bank.
that used to be
We
insurrections
used to
now.
have two banks in the
Uh-huh.
city.
Credit union would be
We
better.
had two banks.
Right.
Yeah,
There
and
were.
we don't have
There were
any.
both of them.
Now we have none, but part of the idea is that not only do you allow the banks in the NRCD, but then also you have to allow some possible higher income residents that may attract a bank. For example, if you had a townhome development with higher income residents, a bank might come look and say, oh, there are more people that would bank here, there's more people who we could maybe make loans to, that might want different financial products. So I think the changes fit together. If you encourage more high income residents, then you'll see the more different kinds of retail and
Okay, but
banks
you're
that you all
saying-
want.
You're saying something here that is like opposition to each other. You're saying you want to do affordable housing, and we are a city for the refugees, and we don't have just refugees here. We do have a lot of lower income people that we tend not to even mention here. In any of our discussions, we all talk about the refugees, but we don't talk about the other lower income people who are US citizens, are not refugees and stuff like that, and we're not addressing any of their issues here.
Well, we
Okay,
are,
but
so I want to do both. So I want to allow for higher income development, I
But how
also want to
can
create
we-
options for lower income and middle income people.
$300,000 homes at the end of our street is not allowing for smaller income, lower income people.
Right, so that would be an example of the higher income people that would possibly be more attractive
But
to the bank.
detrimental to the other people. But
Well,
that's another
that's-
discussion.
that's a different discussion, so I don't wanna get into that right now.
But at the same time, you don't want to have to lose the character. We don't want to be a Brookhaven, and I'm done. We don't want to be a Brookhaven, we don't want to be a Decatur, we don't want to be the Chamblee with the, unless it's done in an industrial buildings. 'Cause
Right.
Chamblee hasn't, clear cut a lot of properties. They've gone in and they've redone old industrial building locations and stuff like that. We do have it, and then we're not using it, and that's part of the issue I have here. Because you're getting rid of the low density and you're getting rid of the buffers, and that's what people are seeing, is getting rid of the buffers, and you're getting rid of the larger lots, and you're allowing, I can now divide my property, Lisa can divide her property, Chris can divide her property and everything else. And it's all under the assumption that we're gonna bring in higher income people, and that's not going to be the basis.
Well,
of
honestly,
it.
your property isn't in the city of Clarkston, so you can do a
No,
whole lot
but it
different.
may be annexed.
It might be, but right now, I'm just saying
Right.
that, as it stands, what you could
I'm
do with
using
your
it as an
property
example.
isn't quite the same thing, because
I
county
understand that.
has other
No,
issues.
I understand that. I'm just
Okay.
using it as my example.
Okay.
I'm just, because everything we're talking about here is hypothetical. So hypothetically, if my property was in Clarkston, okay?
Right.
I would be able to put it, because of the amount of space I have,
Right.
I could put in another home on my
Do
property.
you have the frontage to do it?
I don't know, I never actually checked it.
You'd have to have at least 50 feet of frontage for both your current and then 50 feet again for the new one.
I
don't know
probably
if you
could
have
do
that
it.
or not, you may be able to.
I might be able to do it, yes.
But anyways, sorry, go ahead.
Right, no, I'm done, but I think it's just understood that we do not I mean, to base it on Brookhaven, which has a higher income, which we don't have, and Decatur, which has a higher income, are not good bases. We don't,
Right,
we lose
so
that.
the summary is, what I'm hearing, not just you, but in general, is that what I'm hearing is that the real concern and the real sort of shock is the change, excuse me, the change on the density level.
Yes,
That in that residential area, we are changing the density level to higher density throughout the city versus keeping it as very, very low density.
well, even
And that-
transitional.
Well, and
Because
then
you
what
guys
you
are
would,
taking out transitional.
In R3 is a transition zone.
yeah,
but
we're
it's
keeping in
not-
R3, it's still.
But it's still business. It's still business.
So really, what it
So
is,
it's no transitional.
so you would like to see a lot of the business development and the business changes come through, but you don't want to see the residential changes. That's what I'm hearing in summary from all the different comments.
Well, I'm sorry to butt in, but maybe not such drastic residential.
Right.
So if we met somewhere in the middle on residential changes, that would be okay.
Possibly,
Yeah,
we'd like to hear maybe some compromise in that area.
That may, okay.
Sorry to butt in, I'll be
yeah, but no,
quiet.
that, it's, no,
Yeah.
it's true. It's like.
Right, but we
there's
need to
no
be respectful of the line,
transition.
and I
Okay, so-
apologize for
Yeah.
jumping over that, I'm sorry.
My name's Bob Humphreys, I live around the corner on Norman. I have 2/3 of an acre, which is roughly 30,000 square feet. I have 155 feet of road frontage. So basically, I could sell my property, and it could be divided, somebody could divide it into 3 properties.
Right now, yes.
Yes.
Right now, as it stands, you could, with 150 street frontage and 30,000 square feet, you could divide yours into 3, but you can't go into 3 houses until you come to this city body and apply for a PUD, a planned unit development.
So you could do that now.
But
Yeah, you could do that right now.
I guess that kind of deflates what I was going to say. But I think that the piecemeal approach that we're doing, I mean, you're talking to different people, Jamie. But it's all colored by who Jamie is, which is perfectly fine. I mean, we're all different. Amy does an incredible amount of studying for these things, but she has stated no opinion on what's going on. She just has all the facts. I don't understand why it looks like you personally seem to be spearheading this whole thing, and, you know, what do other people think? I mean, basically, you're here for this proposed zoning change, whatever this is. I don't know why T. Bell was here and or left.
She had to go to a breakfast.
Okay.
But nobody else has shown up from council.
Once he said she was coming back, when I saw her in the parking
She's
lot.
gonna come back.
This guy was coming. Yeah, I know, but still, it's.
Anyway, I really feel like Jamie's the one that's pushing this. And you're getting your
He's always.
information from different people, and they may be more inclined to think as you do. So, again, it's all filtering down through you. And I don't, and it still seems, this whole thing seems sort of piecemeal to me. I mean,
Can you explain that comment? I don't understand how it, can you explain the piecemeal? That's what I don't.
yeah, okay. Our city manager has suggested, as other cities do, hiring a firm to do this. Now, we're getting some of your studies, and we're getting some of Jamie's feelings. I would feel a lot more comfortable if we had just
one cohesive presentation.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I will tell you that I have no formal opinions on this because as a member of planning and zoning, I have no formal opinions until after I have heard all of the comments from everybody at a planning and zoning meeting. I have to do that. Like, I don't know how else to explain that. And so part of what I really want to do is hear the comments and the ideas and take notes so that we can make whatever changes and comments and suggestions back through. I know Jamie is the spearhead on that because somebody has to sort of drive the wagon. Like somebody has to be the point person to do the changes.
No, that's
That's your point person over there.
Shawana has definitely helped me a lot through this process.
Yeah,
But isn't it Jamie's committee? It's your committee.
It's
Yeah.
my committee, yeah.
Every council
Yeah.
person has a committee, and this is his.
right. So as a member of the committee, I have had lots of suggestions and I've read a lot and I've got some great opinions, but I have no final formal opinions.
That's what I stated in the beginning, that you have no opinion and that you're very well studied on the subject.
And I'll be happy to
appreciate it.
share all my research with
Yes.
anybody that wants it.
But again, it's one person collecting information that's, from various sources, and none of what I understand is, what is the term?
It doesn't seem like a cohesive body or cohesive decision.
Yeah.
That's a very fair, I get that now. I understand what you're saying. I apologize.
I guess that's it, except for Amy, I understand your husband said that I called you a bitch, and that's not true.
Oh, okay,
Just letting you know.
okay.
Glad to hear that's not true.
Go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm standing before you to tell you something. I've been here since 1963. And you guys are getting ready to make the biggest mistake you've ever made. It's messing with our zoning. Because that's why we have, how many apartment complexes do we have, Dean? We got over 10 of those. And
78%.
we felt some time ago that as a council, we were volunteers and we were passionate about the love for our city and we wanted to see it go somewhere. So we sat down and decided we'll get ourselves a city manager. And what does the city manager do? He's versing all of these problems that we're having with these cities. That's what he's versed in. And that's why we hired a city manager to guide us to where we want to go. Because when we sat down in 2006 and did our LCI and our study and our future land use plans, you guys are getting ready to put us right back in the hole where we were before. That's why we don't have a bank here. That's why we don't have banks here. That's why our beautiful flower shops left. That's why our hardware store left. And you need to sit down and stop saying you're the professionals. You guys are volunteers like I was. That man is paid to do it. He knows. He's out there every day. He's got contacts that you'll never have. And all of this research that you're doing is great. I love your passion for the city. But get the guidance from somebody that we're paying to do it. Because I don't want to, before I close my eyes, I don't want to see this city like it was before. I want to see beautiful cafes downtown, outdoor cafes. I want to see them auto shops gone. I want to see beautiful American restaurants. We don't have an American restaurant in this city, in downtown, not one, and we need it. When I was in office, Mayor Sweeney and I, we did, I don't know how much travel to get a bank in this city, a fast food place in this city, an outdoor restaurant in this city, and like Patillo Brothers, they're famous for property. They were the first ones we went out to see if they could come in and help us rebuild our downtown. And you know what they did? They walked away from us because we didn't have the infrastructure to do it. That's why we hired a city manager. And for God's sake, please, drop all of this and go back and get your city manager to do the research. You do research, let him do it. You're paying him for it. And then bring the recommendations to you like you normally do. And then we can involve our public and have our charrettes and whatever we need to do to say, this is what we want. Just like Debbie said, we can't tell the people what to put there, but we can sure make it so that they would want to put it there. You know, I mean, you can, as long as, I found out a long time ago, as long as they meet the requirements of that business, they can put it there. That's why I used to sit down with a lot of these owners and say, look, we don't need another grocery store. We need a good restaurant with American food. We need some hot dogs and hamburgers downtown and French fries.
And part of that process is, it's a several layer process. Is one, you've got to have the code that allows them to come in and build or develop. So you have to have that part. So once we make that part possible, then you come in with things like tax incentive programs, or well, that's the best one to explain it. Is it where you give them sort of an incentive tags? What's the acronym tag?
Yeah,
it's a tax
Allocation district.
tax allocation district.
That's why I have a city
That's what
manager.
it is. So and that's where you come in and overlay. But if you don't have the code that allows them that opportunity, then all the tax incentives don't do any good.
Yeah, but you know, we tried to stop spot zoning.
Right.
And you're gonna create it. Yes, you will.
Yeah.
Yes, you will.
This is the opposite of spot zoning.
You
what's called
can set
inclusive
these
zoning.
things that you had for recommendations for the change of the zoning, and I guarantee you, down the line, somebody's gonna say, well, I wanna put something there, but it's not zoned for it. So I'm gonna put in a variance to have that zoning change.
Doesn't mean they can request a variance.
And what
That doesn't mean
happens,
they'll get it.
like what Strong said, you know, a lot of things this council does is to sway toward the business to say, you know, we're not bad guys, you know, and that's not right. We need to go ahead and sit down and tell our city, give our city manager marching orders that we want to get our zoning changed, and if it costs us $50,000 to do it, we need to do it. We spent 60 once before, and look where we are now. We're trying to change the zoning to this crap. Get rid of R1. It's ridiculous. I don't understand what mentality you guys have is to split that R1 to make it medium density. I don't understand that.
Would you like some, I mean, would you like me to answer
In
some
other
of
words,
that?
you want to take away R1.
No.
You want to get rid of it.
So here's some of the logic behind that, if you're genuinely curious. If you're upset and frustrated, that's okay. I don't mind hearing that. Okay, I just don't know if you want to genuinely
Just
answer.
the facts, just the
Yeah,
facts.
just-
No
okay.
lecture, give us the facts. What do you have to say?
The facts are that what you want to do is try and increase a population base to lure more businesses in. Because businesses want to come in where people will shop, where people will eat, where people are going to be. So it's, what do you do first? Do you bring in businesses to attract people, or do you bring in people to attract businesses? And this argument goes on forever because there's never a clear delineation of what brings what. So the idea behind kind of the rip the Band-Aid off, and I'll own that. I think it's, you know, I was the one that was like, we might as well rip the Band-Aid off and get this from two approaches, where we allow for more residents, so more people to be here to attract the businesses, and we allow for businesses to have more opportunities. So we're doing both so that we can attract both. That way, if it's people attract businesses, we've made those changes to attract the more people, to attract the businesses. If it's businesses that bring residents, we've done that change to also bring in, you know, to bring in the businesses, to bring in the residents. It's being able to do both that builds that community. Now, this does not mean, guys, these changes, this is not spot, it's called inclusive zoning, where you are blending communities and small businesses, and that's sort of what the whole metro area is doing. And this does not mean that every business that wants to buy property gets to have the property. They still have to come through. And what we've done is made this so that as the community, you guys now have triple the opportunity to come in and say, I love this business, I want a bodega right there, that's awesome. Or say, a vape shop again? No. So that gives you the opportunity to come here and say yes or no. And then the council and the planning and zoning can then take that and go, you know what, this isn't a support, we'll say no to that business, but yes to this business. Does does that answer your questions? And we
No.
are trying to increase
Well,
the
that's
people that are
answering the
here.
question.
No.
But anyway, it was.
Well, I apologize. Well,
But
what was the
I
question?
still
I'm
don't
sorry.
understand your rationality. You're not a land use planner. You're not an economic developer.
Not by profession.
You're a volunteer
Mhm,
that wants to help our city grow.
mhm.
And we need to have a professional giving us some advice so we can come to these conclusions that you're saying. But that's your idea up there. That's not our ideas. That's what I don't understand. You know, you got all these fantastic plans and you're putting out all this information to us, but you're not a professional.
So what are your ideas?
I appreciate your passion to.
His idea is to go slow, hire a professional, and do some serious planning.
I didn't hear you answer,
That's what he said.
but I want to hear.
I can't say it no better than that.
Okay.
Well, you know, it makes us, no, it doesn't make us look bad, it makes the council look bad when they can say, we're not, you're talking all around your recommendations from your city manager
And the people.
and the people. And I don't understand that. Why would you make that man feel any less than what he is by just walking around his recommendation? His recommendation is to hire a firm that will give us guidance to move forward in this rezoning, period.
Okay.
And if it takes $50,000, I'll sign a petition and say, yeah, let's pay him $50,000.
Okay.
You know, so you guys need to step back away from it. You're not professionals. That man is professional.
Okay.
And I wish you would, because I don't want to see this city like it was before, when we had like that Ford place over there. You know why that can't be rented? It's contaminated because of the same thing you're doing now, trying to give us this fantastic rezoning plan to bring more people into the city. We're going to split these gorgeous, beautiful grass-lined lots and trees and make it so we can have 4 houses on the property and only have 1. 2 houses where we only have 1. And you're going to take out R1 and move it to medium density, and it's gone. So why? I mean, what idea did y'all have to even come up to say, let's get rid of those beautiful, gorgeous residential lots that people crave to have? That's why I moved to Clarkston.
So what's interesting is that the research doesn't support that anymore.
I
The
don't care what
research,
research
you
doesn't live
asked
here.
where we came
But
to
the
this
research
plan.
doesn't, the research doesn't live
Where
here.
we
The
came.
research does not live in Clarkston. It doesn't live here. We live here.
Right.
But you said you wanted professionals, and that's what we did.
And
No, they're not.
you're
Yeah,
not
they're
professional.
not there yet.
That man,
Not
that
there
man
yet.
has been giving out information.
We're not arguing the professionals.
That
anymore.
man is giving out information.
Where's-
It's totally.
You asked where that idea came from, and that idea came from the desire to grow the city. So if you want to grow the city, what do other cities do? You go to the research. The research shows this is what grows a city, so that's what we're doing.
But we are the research, not the people out there. We are.
You just said
You come
wanted
to us and ask us first.
Right.
You know, you ask the residents of Clarkston.
So how would you like to
what
grow
would you
the
like to
city?
see right there?
What would you like to do to grow
That's
the
what we
city?
did when we did our future land use plan. Did we, Dean? We had people come.
These questions are really, he's not gonna be able to answer that question,
Thank you.
okay? He is making a suggestion. He's asking why you didn't go to the city manager and get professional advice. You're already sitting over here making these small comments about this argument. You haven't sought professional advice. You talked to a couple of professionals. That is not going through, that is not going through a stealth
Right.
process of research and development.
Right,
And we would like to see research and development for our city, because we have a vested interest here.
okay,
Okay, all right.
that point
Yeah,
has
when
been
when
lowered.
annexation is planned for the
Right.
future, we need professional guidance.
Got it.
So
Right there.
don't keep saying you've done this, because you haven't done this. You have not gone to professional help. You have not gone to the level that's advised by most jurisdictions and most
What we
cities.
have
and
not done is
municipalities.
undertaken the 18-month process with
Wait a
the
minute,
company.
wait, that's opinion,
That's not opinion.
that's opinion.
I actually looked that up, thank you
It
very much,
takes
Dee.
18 months to
It takes
rezone?
anywhere from 12 to 18 months, almost up to 24 months. But
But
most
couldn't
companies
you-
will do it within 18 months
And
to
you don't
go
think that's
through an
worth it? You don't think
entire
that's worth it to
rezoning
do it right?
process.
You don't
No,
think
I'm
That's not what I
asking-
said.
That's what
I
you're
just
saying.
said that I looked that up.
You're
It
throwing
took
that out
18
as if
months
that's an
from the
obstacle.
project.
That is a
and the other
requirement. Let's
question,
require
is it-
2 years then.
Is it 18 months
No,
worth
it's,
of
it's,
research?
it's Ransom's turn. It's Ransom's
Can I-
turn and we've
well,
all been.
I
No, I
appreciate
have a
that,
question,
Deanna.
Amy. Is it 18
But
months worth of research?
What I
you're
want you
saying?
guys to do is, let's stop all this rhetoric and all this back and
And
forth.
just hire a
And go to
research
that
firm.
man right there and say, would you find us a firm to give us guidance on our rezoning? Leave it alone, Jamie. I voted for you. And I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you're doing it wrong. I don't care how smart you are.
Okay,
I'm smarter than you. I'm 80 years old. I've seen this city come from nothing. And we started to climb the ladder when we hired a city manager. So let's keep climbing. Accept his recommendations and let's move forward and stop all this mess.
okay.
Because with where you're going, I've been saving money for the last 5 years to buy me a small cottage home. I can't afford $300,000 for a cottage home. And that's what you guys are getting ready to slap on us. Where it's gonna cost me from $250,000 to $300,000
Hold on.
for a cottage home.
We don't set those prices.
Wait a minute now.
That's what the
The
developer.
zoning is gonna do it, what you're doing. That's what's gonna do it. That zoning you're trying to get in
This
there
doesn't make
is
prices.
gonna, yes,
You're
it
talking
will.
about bringing in higher income people. He said it, bringing in higher income people,
See.
that's gonna price him out.
And balancing
Totally.
out.
No, no.
It will totally price me out. I've been where I am 20 years in that one house, right?
All right,
I want a smaller home. I want a one-level home.
okay.
I don't want to climb no stairs. I don't want to cut no grass. And I
So
want
you
to
want
pay,
a smaller
I
lot
want
and
to
a
pay
smaller
from
home?
from 125 to 150 is fine with me. That's what I've saved up for. But the way
Excellent.
you're going now, you have totally priced me out. Take the advice from your city manager, and I'm gonna fight you guys.
No, no, no,
I'm
I
gonna
think
fight
that's
y'all
a
for
really
it. I'm
good
gonna fight
point.
y'all for it.
I think that's a really good point.
You guys need to quit all of this and drop it and leave it to the city manager. And then let him bring forward these recommendations. And then you have your marching orders to have the public meet, let's say 4 good meetings, have your the planning and development director in all of the meetings where she can take all the notes and give us, have a charrette. I mean, and most of all, when you hold these meetings, have food. Because you won't have nobody come to the meetings if you don't have food. Am I right?
We gotta make snacks.
All right? So I appreciate you guys' recommendations, but you will be getting letters from me. I'm gonna start writing letters to ask you to please drop it and leave it to our city manager to give us the
Okay,
guidance.
I just wanna point out that I think you made a really important point. I just wanna make sure I got it down, okay? Is that what you're looking for and what you have been saving for? Is that you want a smaller home on a lot you don't have to cut grass on in these 1 to 150 range, right?
Right,
Excellent. Thank
that's
you.
a middle income house.
Right, I'm not agreeing,
And-
I'm not disagreeing, I'm
And we're
trying
gonna
to
be
make
priced
sure
out
that.
with the way
A
things
lot of
go.
people want that, Manuel.
I think you're right, I think there's a lot of people that
Yeah.
want that, and I just want to make sure that I heard you right, and I got it, I got
But the
it right.
houses that are gonna be getting ready to be built down on East Avenue is gonna be from 230.
No,
No,
100,
275,000 to
275,000.
325,000.
that's not in the narrative.
37 houses.
No, that's what Poplar and East Ave is gonna be priced at? $275,000.
No, no,
But
no.
the ones on
tiny
The
ones.
Bond,
ones
Over
here on
here.
Bond Street, what are they gonna be priced at?
100,000.
Yeah,
Alright,
come on
fine.
Tuesday, that's, please, come
Oh, I've
on
already got
Tuesday
that notice, I'll be
and
here.
say that
I'll
on
be here.
Tuesday. Say that on
Okay,
Tuesday.
all right.
Because
Thank
I
you,
need
but
to
please,
hear that on
Jamie,
Tuesday.
take back to your council, let's, hey fellas and ladies, let's put it down and drop it and then let our city manager start from scratch and move forward on rezoning, period. That's all you need to do,
All right,
all right?
we got it.
Thank you.
Guys, are we gonna do a code enforcement
Yeah,
thing
we are.
next?
Well, we're gonna try, after we finish the questions, we're gonna
Yeah.
go to code enforcement, sorry about that. We do
Yeah, I
have
should've
that,
gone through
we should have gone through it first, but people didn't want
You
to at
were
the
right.
time. Anyways, sorry,
Thank
please.
you, and thank you both for meeting with me separately on different zoning items. I'm still trying to digest, especially a lot of the comments, so my comments are going to be short, and I probably have a lot more to say later, but I think I talked to both of you guys about town center and the drive-ins. I don't know if this has probably been brought up in this meeting before, but if there, I mean, I've been waiting for this, and what I'm really waiting for is streetscapes, because I realize what we're trying to do and what the end game is, but, you know, streetscapes are very, very attractive to businesses. I know a lot of people have mentioned maybe phasing some of these things in. I think it's a great idea. I also think that you guys realize that some of these changes have to work in concert with each other. And so maybe that can make phasing a little bit more complicated or difficult. But I personally, you know, I can't wait for streetscapes to happen. That will help us, right? I think keeping fast food drive-ins out of our town center would be great. And I would love to see a little compromise somewhere in R1. I think that is quite a drastic cut. I'm not an expert. I don't know what it is exactly about the cut that is going to help our city. I get what you're trying to do. But if there was a way to meet somewhere in the middle on that number, I don't know, you know, what other cities as dense as ours. We are very, very, very dense.
Yeah.
We're more dense than Atlanta, we're more dense than Decatur, we're dense. We may not be after we annex, but we are very, very dense per square mile right now. And we have a lot of high density housing. So, you know, being someone who's planning on living here for the next 30 years, it does concern me a little to have, to lose some of these traditional larger lots. But I do understand where you're going and what you're trying to do. I would really love to see some streetscapes. I would love to see some revitalization of downtown. I know we need people to spend money here. I'll spend my money here, a lot of it, all of it, if we can please get the downtown revitalized. I don't spend my money here right now. I love living here, and I spend it where I can and when I can. But, you know, and I realize we need a tax basis and we need people to come here and spend that money. But I think a lot of us who already live here don't spend our money here. You know, get the streetscapes in, you know, and let us spend our money here.
So if we're to do this phase-wise, you would say phase 1 should be streetscapes, phase 2 businesses, phase 3 residential?
I mean, it's hard for me to say because I really don't think I have the proper credentials
I'm
to say
just
that. I'm not saying you guys
asking
don't.
for an opinion.
No,
Just
really, I'm
asking
scared
for
to,
an
I'm
opinion.
scared to say that because I really don't know what will work, right? And I'm not saying you
Yeah.
guys don't have the credentials. I'm just saying I would like to do more research on my own. I would like to, you know, and I know that you guys have presented lots of research and I frankly haven't read all of it. So, and I will try to. But yeah, I would love, just for me personally, I would love to see the Streetscapes project come to fruition and let some of these things happen organically, right? Or in phases. And yeah, I can't wait for the downtown to be revitalized. You know, and I realize, like I said, that some of these things have to be in concert with each other. But maybe we can find a happy medium somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so 18 will be the last comment, and we gotta save time for code enforcement. So hopefully everyone else has had their chance to speak their piece. And you know, I don't want to cut you off too short.
Well, Lisa is absolutely brilliant, because that was pretty much our strategy as a city council with the city manager, was to improve the streetscapes. We had a $4 million grant in 2005 that we were able to maximize, and we established credit. The city was about to go bankrupt in 2009. And so we've built from that point. And so the first step was to make the city attractive. Take control of our gateways, do some annexation. We've been strategizing on annexation to increase our tax base. So we had the ability to establish credit and to survive, although we did establish credit before we did the annexations. And then to work on the business community. And that's something I'd like you to focus on. We've got vacant businesses, one right here at the bike path at Norman Road.
Yeah.
Opened up for a while, used to be a Maytag, the laundromat, and then it was a PCS store, and what's that money, Western Union. Those didn't seem to work out. It's been vacant for nearly a year. People talk about having a pizza joint, this, that, and the other. Look at those items. Focus on the downtown area. We had a grant program, or ARC put out a grant program for these businesses to do facade improvements, and nobody moved on.
Took advantage of it.
Nobody took that up.
Nobody.
Why?
Can I ask you a question?
Look at those businesses. Yes.
I'm just looking for opinions and ideas, because part of this process is getting everybody on the same page, okay? What would be a way, because I also know that you've done a lot of research and, studies on your own. What would be a way to increase business development? Do you, like the laundromat that's vacant? What are ways that you know?
The strategy was to help with business development, was to make it attractive.
How would we do that?
Streetscape project. Let the
So you wanna start
streetscape
with
project
streetscape?
finish
Okay.
out.
Okay,
That's gonna make it attractive, take control of the gateways,
gotcha.
become a destination, make it a
Okay.
place where people want to come. Now, what I would like to do is have the city council approach things logically and strategically. You're basically holding everybody hostage right now with this rezoning, this huge rezoning thing. And you've got a couple other little things that are in the mix. Through this process, you've developed the situation that's part of this, that you think we have to have a different process of planning and development. So you've got a piece of that. You can do that separately. The bigger thing that's been around longer that has come to your attention was this child care issue. You're holding the children hostage. They're going to be in high school by the time you get around to figuring out that you can't just go in and rezone everything. I think that it should take 2 years to do that. Not 2 years to do the child care thing. That's easy to do. You can go ahead and pass that. Why are you throwing that into this bundle? Why are you trying to stack things up like this to make this one gargantuan thing when the biggest part of it should take 2 years to do? So why are you holding people hostage and children hostage? I don't think the city, how is the city council thinking about children? One of the first things you did was you declassified a college campus and said it's not a college campus, so that one business could sell alcohol in the lowest economic area. That's not economic development.
That's
to
terrible.
allow this Exxon station to sell alcohol in the lowest economic area. That was a mistake. I'd like to see you, why couldn't you find ways to encourage them to become a college campus again, to increase learning? It's just, it's adults going there, it's English as a second language. When they get done, they can go next door and get a beer, and walk home drinking a beer, because nobody's going to watch them. There's not enough police force to stop people from drinking in public. But anyway, that's a totally separate issue. The issue of the child care in these apartments, that should be taken out of this altogether. That should have been done a year ago. That's what I don't understand. What is the thinking on this? Why are you holding that hostage? Why are you not going forward with the things you can do that are positive for the community, that do promote education and economic development, and you throw it into this smorgasbord of zoning?
So your
And
recommendation
bundling
then,
it for experience.
it's his turn. So your recommendation then is that we break out different pieces
Absolutely.
and then package the rest. So some of the,
No,
like,
no, I'm not, this is not a packaging thing.
no,
This is a
but
strategy thing.
do a
Planning.
comprehensive review on
development,
one.
planning and development.
And do a little, but going ahead and pass, a few things now, and then wait on the others. Such as the
I'm not
child
saying
care.
wait, I'm not saying wait, it's obvious that you can
Evaluate.
pass this now.
Evaluate.
You can go in next week and talk to 3 council members and get the mayor to approve whatever you want to do. That's easy. What you're doing is you're getting pushback from the community on this. You're getting advice from professionals that you hired as a city manager, planning and development director, to do the research, and not just Amy's research. There's other people who are doing research. I've got a sheet here, I'll be happy to give it to you, that has different links to all sorts of different zoning strategies that are better than what this is, that you've come up with. But I'm wondering why you can't just do the child care thing. Get that out of the way. Make that go forward, because that promotes the development of the city and promotes a family value that I think that we all need here. We've got such a huge population. I don't think we need to increase the population. I think we need to do some things to develop the population. Some of the other questions I have, Amy, you've had some trials and tribulations on building an addition to your house. Can you speak to that? What were the things that kept you from building that addition to your house?
The engineer went on vacation for the month of January and forgot to sign the form before he left.
Okay, so we don't need to do those rezoning to satisfy your needs. Now, if I had a corner lot that had over 250 feet of frontage, would that be, and I was able to get 5,000 square foot lots off of that, would that, I'd be able to build 5 houses on that corner?
Not unless you come to the city and get approval for a planned unit development,
Right.
which means your neighbors might
But
say
is it
no.
planned unit development, or is it just 5 houses?
No, it's a planned unit
Houses.
development. Anything 3
She
and
said it's
over,
5 houses, you said it's planned unit development.
anything over 2 homes
That's not planned.
qualifies under as a planned unit in our new
Let's
Anything
get this
over-
clear.
Anything
Thing
over
over
2
2.
homes is a subdivision.
subdivision,
That's
not
just-
planned
That's
unit.
the bottom.
Right,
That's
so
the
you still have to
foundation.
come
It makes it
here.
a subdivision. What you're building on it determines if you want it as a planned unit development in that zoning district. So
Right.
it depends on the zoning district, what you can actually make it a planned unit development, mixed-use development, or commercial, a planned commercial development.
But all of those have to come before
Now, that
planning
is
and
true.
zoning here. Your neighbors could say,
3+.
yeah, your neighbors could say, you can subdivide, but you can't build whatever you wanted to do on it. That's where you guys get to have the
Okay,
right
so it's
to
a check
say,
and- so it's a check and balance.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Right, there's
Yes.
balances there.
And a few minutes ago, you talked about all the hoops and obstacles that people had to go through now, and you're talking about taking those obstacles away so that people could just develop it and not have to go through planning and zoning and those things. So that's a
That's not what I
contradiction.
said.
That's what you said. That is what you said.
no.
Okay, well, Dean, do you
Go
have
ahead.
anything else? Because we gotta get to code enforcement, we only have like 30 minutes.
But anyway,
No.
but Jamie, don't you own a corner lot that's got 250 feet of frontage?
I don't own the corner lot.
Oh, you don't, okay.
Well, actually,
Bacon and-
well, no, Jolly,
Bacon and
I guess
Jolly.
that technically is a corner lot, but I don't, it's not big, it's not 10,000, it's
It's
not
on
big
the
enough.
corner of Jolly and Bacon?
Yeah, I do own that lot,
Okay,
but it's
that's-
not,
you got 250 feet.
but it's not 10,000 square feet to develop.
There's 50 feet of frontage,
Yeah, but
250 feet of frontage,
but
you
it's
can build
not-
5 houses there.
It's not 10,000 square feet, so I couldn't
Yeah, but if you
build
make
two.
this change, then you got 5 houses.
Yeah, it's under right, I couldn't, as much as I would like to.
So
I'm
maybe a
just-
conflict of interest here, I'm just
No.
saying.
Well, how many
there
square
may be-
feet is your lot, Jamie?
No, it's in R3,
No,
so.
How many square feet is it?
I'd have to look at it again, but I think it's right around 5,000. The house itself is only 1,000 square feet, and the house is like a pretty big portion of the lot. So anyways,
Anyway,
And another observation, I mean, are you, okay, the question is, this looks like it's targeted to developers. You're trying to please developers to come here and straighten out our city and you know, make it more populated. Is that correct? That's what you said.
remember Emmanuel said he wanted a small house on a
No,
small land?
no, I'm asking the question here.
All
I'm
right.
asking the question. Don't.
So what we're trying to do is make it possible for Emmanuel to get exactly what he wanted.
No, you're targeting
A
developers.
small
You're
lot
targeting
with a
developers.
small house.
We can do some lots, we can do some variances to build tiny houses.
You can.
We already have that, so we don't have to do this massive change. You're actually
Makes it
attracting,
easier
you're
for them to do that.
attracting, you're attracting developers.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that make you feel better, or does that make you feel worse?
No, it just confirms what I'm trying to tell you.
We're
Um,
attracting businesses to develop the downtown area.
Public already lives here, public already lives here. You know, it's like the developers don't live here, the research doesn't live here, we live here.
Thank
So okay, if we need to have a house for Emmanuel, we can make that happen. We are a city that can make that happen. We have the power to do that.
Isn't that what we're doing?
No, you're doing this blanket change for the developers. That's what I'm saying.
To
You're doing this
make
for the
a
developers.
Tiny
You're
home
doing this
development
for developers.
to make homes
You're just-
for our people to
You're
live
just repeating
in.
the same thing. Do you have a question?
Yeah, we got a bunch of,
Okay, well, I think we're
Yeah,
going to
we've
move
gotta
on to
get
code
to
enforcement.
Okay.
That's a lot.
yeah. Well, our responses are not being considered at this point.
Well, I
So we need
feel like
somebody
they-
who is not tied into, can we get you to admit that the city manager's request to have us hire somebody to do this, can we get that? Are you on board with that?
We're looking at other
No,
options.
no, are you on board with
We're
that?
taking
You haven't even found a price on any of it.
Jamie, why don't you
Research.
say yes or no? Are you in favor of it or
We
are
are
you
looking at
not?
options. We've talked to Carl Vincent, we've gotten feedback from other people. It's not just one person. And we are looking at options for having a professional consultant be paid by the city to look at that. So if that answers your question. I think we have to get to code enforcement because I got to get out of here at noon. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so we don't have time to hear code enforcement. Okay,
And
so you
you
want to be ready?
you will start looking at the vacant businesses and find out why they're vacant. Because you talked about the vacant lots, you talked to the people with the vacant lots that want to do things. How about the vacant businesses? Is there any way that we can negotiate with them to figure out a way to get businesses in
I'm
there?
happy to talk to the owners of those properties and see.
Would you make that effort without me going and getting the names and showing you which ones you need to talk to?
Oh, Dean, that's just petty.
No, it's
It's
not.
inappropriate.
No, it's not. It's exactly, he's saying, yeah, he's happy to talk to him. So who's gonna bring him to him?
I think
Is he gonna make that effort to
we
go
can
out?
go to code enforcement.
Okay,
That
Dean,
was-
and if I say I will, then will you be quiet and let us do the code enforcement portion? Okay, I
I'd
will.
rather you do it.
I will. All right, code enforcement.
This is just going to be a simple overview. The actual code compliance community meeting will be May 4th at the community center.
I'm sorry, this is just an overview
This is just
of
an
the
overview.
change. The official meeting will be May 4th.
Let her do it.
I didn't hear her, I'm sorry, I didn't hear her, I just.
This is just code compliance 101, just the basics. There is a code compliance full meeting May 4th. So I'm just giving you a few background.
What time?
10.
And it's
the-
at the
the
community
Clarkston. It's at the community center. 10 a.m. That is also Saturday. Wonderful. The goal of code compliance is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the city of
Compliance
Clarkston
meeting.
residents. Code compliance responds to concerns that affect the quality of life,
Clarkston Community Center.
such as overgrown lots or yards, inoperable vehicles, maintenance of structures, and other concerns or nuisances. Common violations could be building complaints, fences, decks, or accessory buildings, outdoor storage, could be a garage sale sign, grass or weeds, operating without a business license, motor vehicles and parking complaints, noise violations. It could be an open house or real estate sign, or unsafe structures. Some nuisances are your grass or weeds that are over 12 inches, trash and debris on your property, construction or landscape material in public view, household items in public view, standing water or stagnant swimming pools, again, inoperable vehicles, that could be an expired tag, parking on the grass, etc.
Can you define household items, please?
It could be a refrigerator,
Mattress.
stove, a
It
mattress,
doesn't
a
have to
bed
with the,
spring.
Could it be flower
With the
pots?
washer dryers and-
That's outside.
Okay.
Do you have flowers in them, or they're just collecting?
Well, some of them had flowers, but it was January when I was cited, there were no flowers.
It could be fences that could be leaning or missing parts, a fence that may obstruct the vision or traffic. No building permits are required to erect a fence. Please know that you do not have to get a permit to erect a fence. Home-based businesses, of course, if they have traffic or parking concerns, exterior storage, most home-based businesses are not allowed to store their items outside. Or if you just did not apply for a business license, that could be a resident complaining or someone that's near you complaining or issuing a complaint. Maintenance, again, that is address numbers not posted on the front, that is in the ordinance. Your window screening could be in disrepair, peeling paint or exposed wood, or unsecured vacant structure that you own. Of course, we have many owners that do not actually live in the city of Clarkston, but they do own the properties and they're not maintaining them properly. Again, signs not in the correct location, vehicles used, or you just simply erected a sign without a permit. And those are just the basics, just an
Can we someday
overview.
get a copy of that?
You can, and Mr. Moore has it already. I emailed that to you during the meeting.
I'll copy.
But if anyone else would like a
Definitely
copy,
want a
I can give you a copy of that. And it will be on the internet. Yes, ma'am.
Isn't that on the website?
We're gonna put it up there for you.
So there's nothing about cats, like 14,000 cats?
You,
Would that be a
Is that a-
news?
is that a-
I didn't see animals, anything about animals, so cats or
You mean
dogs.
living in a house?
Wildlife.
Do you mean wildlife, or do you mean in the house?
I think,
Like a
any,
bazillion cats that somebody just feeds and they're feral and wandering the neighborhood, peeing everywhere.
if that's a code violation, are they in a structure or are they just roaming?
Just roaming, so they're
Your,
not in a structure.
a particular location, or
Well, I'm
is
not gonna say that.
or
part.
is it your cat?
No, I'm not gonna say that, but I just didn't see, when we do the code meeting on May 4th,
It'll be a lot more detailed.
we'll cover a lot more detail, because
Yes.
there are a lot of small things like, can you change the oil in your own driveway? In some cities you can't, I don't know if you can or can't here. I mean, there's a lot of small details that it would be nice to iron all that out
I
and have
think in our
some
code, you
sense of-
cannot, do like automobile repair in your yard.
She's an idiot.
I'm just,
Is
I
that
don't know
automobile repair for
specifically.
business or for personal?
it could be
Either
sometimes in your, it
That's
depends on your
typically not-
neighborhood.
Yeah, that's typically not allowed to do automobile repairs. The question is an oil change
Is
an
an oil
automobile
change-
repair?
Okay.
That'll
There you
be
go.
clarified.
There you
Cat,
go.
any pets that you have cannot be running at large.
Okay, and here's another thought or something that I've been thinking about a lot is maybe some clarity once, I don't know how that's gonna go, I don't even wanna think about that. Some clarity on how people can provide parking when they have huge parties. I'm in a party down neighborhood, and every Sunday, used to be the crack house, but now it's other things. There'll be 40 people at a party, and they're parked all up and down the street everywhere, and I don't wanna, sometimes I gripe to them. I don't wanna gripe to the city, I want clarity on what the rules are.
But are they obstructing, is it creating a safety issue?
Well, I think here's why I worry about it, is that sometimes if they're parked on both sides, this isn't the widest road in
And that's
America.
the issue sometimes,
Yeah.
because some
Yeah.
areas of Clarkston, you can't park.
It's fire
You
trucks and
can't park on both
ambulances, yeah.
sides of the
And
street.
that's not a code issue,
That's not a
that's a
code
police
issue.
issue.
Yes.
Oh,
So we'll clarify,
Okay.
parking, maintenance of traffic, moving, anything involving vehicles or parking is a police issue, and we'll look at that. So we need to be made aware of it. I don't walk or drive on every street every Sunday.
Yeah, of course.
So I need to be made, please let us know of issues like that. We may need to make a change to restrict parking to one
On one
side of the
side,
street.
yeah.
Signage. Okay, last thing about code enforcement that I really want you guys to cover on May 4th is what time period, when you get a ticket. I got a ticket for the chickens, everybody knows this by now. I got a ticket for the chickens, and on the date on it was said, when can it be corrected, was in 12 hours, the next day. That was kind of crazy.
What was
Yeah.
your citation for?
The chickens were in the front yard, they're supposed to
So
be
your
back.
your chickens were running loose?
They were in the front yard,
Okay,
yeah.
so I guess my question to you would be, is it reasonable, what is a reasonable time for you to
I would
not
say-
have the chickens running in the front yard or in the
Well,
neighbor's
I would
property?
say if they're gonna require a pen, building a pen takes several.
But we're not,
Yeah.
I don't believe we told you how,
Nope,
right?
she did. She wrote a whole thing to me about
What
it.
did she say on there?
They needed to be penned, and the pen had to be X amount big, and blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
And
according
all
to
of
the
that had to
ordinance.
happen in 12 hours.
Yeah.
I'm destitute, so there was no way I could do that in 12 hours, but I could do it in 30 days.
Well, we
And
will
I
make
called
sure
you
that we
guys,
do
yeah.
go over the process
Yeah,
of
some
how
clarity.
you get a notice of violation
Yeah, and
to
it was,
the dates that you should correct the violation, and if it's not corrected in a certain period of time,
Yeah.
that's the citation.
so I think that's appropriate, and I called and said, I can't do it in 12 hours. Can we make it 30 days, and I'll have a decent pen put up? And I did, and it cost a lot of money, but I did it. But I thought to myself, well, I'm brave enough to call. But I think on my street, a lot of people have gotten those notices where it says, must be corrected by tomorrow, or must be, and if they're old, they're not gonna be able to do it anymore.
Well, I would tell, if it is for chickens moving around, then you do need to make sure that that's a safety issue,
Okay,
and that they do need to be placed.
I hear it, but I'm just
But
trying to
we'll work
figure
on
out
the time.
what the rules of the ticketing are. And the ticket, one of the tickets was placed on the floor of my front porch under a rock. So I didn't see it for like 2 weeks. Then when I saw it, I was freaking out because I'd already passed the deadline. So I think some clarity on that
We'll
would
do
be
that.
good,
We'll
yeah.
correct it.
Wait, Mr. Moore.
Well, I have to say
Citizens
that
do.
in 20 years of living in Clarkston as a homeowner, that this is the first, I'm quite sure this is the first time that code enforcement has ever been officially addressed. And so I like to see, I'm glad to see the progress. I think there's two different things, discussions here, or there could be, there's two different issues. And then one is the list of all these conceivable violations. But then there's also the procedure of how an enforcement officer goes about
Enforcement.
so to say.
Okay.
Now, I'm familiar, and I was over to Debbie's house with some of these situations, and I have to say that maybe it was this person, I don't know, but the performance of the code enforcement out there in the old days would have warranted tar and feathers. That is disgusting. When somebody can come up to you and make up the shit as they go along. They don't, when they come out and they make it up.
What did they make up that you're alluding to?
Ask
An
her.
example would be good. What was made up,
She
so that
just
we're aware?
She just gave you a few things.
Well, I
You
did,
mean putting the citation under a rock?
well, that was
I
one.
agree that that's a problem, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
But there was some other stuff,
Now, I
there was a
don't-
lot
I
of
don't-
discussion about the backyard, which it turns out they aren't supposed to go in your backyard. And I didn't want her to go in my backyard because she would let my dogs out and they would get hit by cars and kill them.
We all have to keep in mind
So
that,
you can't, yeah.
that at least 50%, at least 70% of the homeowners are in violation of something there. What that means is that, and most people don't care about most of these violations. I don't care that whether my neighbor's yard is a little grubby, the guy's 84 years old, how much longer is he gonna be there? You know, we should, a little bit more of live and let live philosophy should be observed.
So you would like to see fewer code rules, regulations?
Less of it being enforced where people don't care.
Unless
You
a
know-
complaint.
know, a little bit more live and let live in the procedures of code enforcement.
So you don't
And then
want
a
less
little
rules,
bit,
you
and
just
then
want less enforcement
less
of the
enforcement
rules.
of things that people
Okay.
don't even give a damn about.
What if
You know, an old
permit?
tenet of the Old English law, and what most of American common law, which is a dimension of our legal system, is based upon, is the term injured party. Where there's an injured party traditionally, then that is where law and courts come into order. Who's the injured party? If her chicken, let me finish.
Okay.
Who's the injured, because I've been building and wanting to, this has been building up for a long
I'm
time,
sure.
for someone like Chris Busey. Where's the injured party when a chicken crosses the road? Sounds like a joke. You know, I mean, seriously. Was it the developer that wants to develop the property across the street that says we need to clean up the neighborhood? I mean, you know, where's the injured party
The neighbors.
if I have some sticks of lumber in my backyard behind a fence that no one complained about?
Yeah.
Really?
And if you see,
I have
those
a,
are issues that if you can see them from the street,
but who
then
cares?
So
Even
here's my
then,
question, so
who cares?
Some people do
when-
care,
Yeah.
that's the.
can
when-
I ask
Yes, ask me.
a question to understand what you're saying?
I'm just aware of the time.
I know.
She says
My
we're out of
question
here at
is,
12.
Yeah.
so
And I know we have May 4th coming.
you want not fewer rules, you want
he does.
only enforcement if somebody's complained
Yes.
about it.
Correct.
Yes.
So you want all the rules that are there to be there.
Correct.
You just don't want anybody to bother with it unless it's been complained by a neighbor.
Amy,
But half the time
Amy, that's
it's
an
a-
excellent
That is-
question.
Trying to
That's an
clarify the
excellent
point.
question, and I basically agree with
and
that,
that's a great
except.
assessment, because that is actually what happens.
That's the majority.
Majority
No,
of
it's
the time.
Not all.
I've been
of them,
here
not
for 20
pretty,
years,
but
and
That's
that's
the
not what
majority of the
happens.
time of how we get the
That's not what
information.
happens.
That is
That's
what
dead
happens.
wrong.
That is what happens, that is what
Somebody
happens.
Maybe-
complains
The
about it.
majority of them
Maybe
are
that's what
false.
you're aspiring to,
No?
but that's not what has been traditional.
No, that's what it is.
But I would like to finish
Okay.
answering the rest of her question.
So we can let Mr.
The
Moore
only
have his turn.
area where I feel that code enforcement should be proactive, even, just basically how I feel, even where a complaint of a neighbor has not been issued, is when somebody's busting out of the ground with a foundation for an unpermitted structure that needs to be taken care of right away, because if that homeowner ends up building something worth $40,000 there that's not permitted, then there's a big problem, because then the thing has to be demolished.
Okay, so
Okay,
Now, I guess, I don't know whether I guess this is a give and take here, and you want to talk, and you want to talk, and there's only so much time left, and I still would like to talk about it.
but we're gonna go and address your issues at the overall code compliance meeting, May 4th at 10.
So it's two things.
So
It's the
right
list
now,
and
it's
the
just that
process.
you're giving a little bit of feedback of what
I'm
you would like for us
asking
to
clarifying
address.
questions to
So,
make sure I understand.
so I have what you've just stated, and each time that even when Debbie said a few things, I wrote those down to make sure that we present those for her at May 4th meeting.
All of my neighbors' yards are a little junky.
Okay.
And all of my neighbors, every one of my neighbors are in violation. I don't mean to turn anyone in. I'm saying.
I did not know that until you just
I mean,
gave
I'm
me that
saying
complaint.
everyone, including me,
Chris, you're ratting them out.
okay? And including everyone
We just said.
in every street in
Okay.
Clarkston.
But he
You know
lives
what?
on Smith Street.
He's
But
like
no
a
one-
mega snitch, he's writing out the whole city.
terrible.
But no one cares. No one, why should code enforcement come snooping around when no complaints have been issued?
You just gave us a complaint.
You know, I mean,
No, that
a
wasn't
little
right
bit
now.
more, live and let live,
Got it. Live and let live.
you know? I mean, a lot of people are in difficult economic circumstances. And if code enforcement should come around arbitrarily, not based on any complaints, and write this up and this up, and that costs that person $4,000, right? And then you know, and they're living on the edge anyway. You know how many people like that are around here? And then that $4,000 fines that they could potentially be fined, because I have been fined in court, ends up wrecking their lives. Now, my life hasn't been wrecked. You know, that doesn't make sense. And you want to talk about the quality of life, you know, it's a euphemism really. The quality of life should also be defined in terms of leaving people alone. You know, leave them the heck alone. That's part of the quality of life. And if 70% of, and I'm done now, I'm finished. If 70% of the homeowners in this city, which there are in some visible violation of the code, and that's our de facto feeling about our quality of life, and that's okay, then leave it that way. A kinder and gentler code enforcement, I have another hour which I could speak articulately on it, but that'll be more.
May 4th will be only code enforcement, so we
Okay,
have all the.
yeah, that's great.
that will be
First, I
more
want to
fun.
mention on the chicken ordinance, isn't there some requirement to have housing for those chickens?
They have to be in an
Yeah.
enclosed pen.
And isn't there some level of request from the potential chicken owner to request from the city that they have the chickens?
No.
Is there any
No.
process? You just go out and buy chickens whether you have a house for them or not?
It depends on where you're zoned,
Yeah.
and that's the number that you can have based on your residential
There's
zoning.
a number
You're permitted to
requirement.
have, yes, there is a number requirement.
There's a lot size. and-
But they, just like you did
But
state,
shouldn't
it is
shouldn't
an
they have-
enclosure,
Shouldn't they have some sort of a
like a permit to come.
oversight or
house.
permit to have chickens?
Well, that's a suggestion you can certainly make.
I'm not, just asking a question.
It could be.
It doesn't
But
exist.
right now,
Doesn't
we don't
exist
have
now.
a
I
permit
think
to,
Andrea's working on a
And there's
urban
some
farming ordinance.
questions about the overlap with the police, or there's no overlap.
what is
Police or
enforceable
code
by police.
enforcement, because there were two incidents that I had recently where the police officer was unable to do anything because it was a code issue. One of them was at at Ponce Grill. I was coming home at 4 o'clock in the morning, I didn't see a police presence, so I called the police to ask if there was a police presence, had to check it out. And he came, he walked in, there was no police presence, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. Apparently, they may have seen me taking pictures from the railroad tracks because my flash went off. And so when he went in there were no drinks, nobody was, they were just in there sitting
Put
around.
their drinks underneath the
They were all just sitting around. 4 o'clock in the morning, they weren't drinking or anything.
in my neighborhood.
So those pictures have been used, and I did meet with Shanitha Smith, and so that was one issue. Another issue where I was walking through the parking lot of Family Dollar, and the sprinklers were on, and all the sprinklers were directed directly to the parking lot, not to the grass. It was a huge waste of water and whatnot, and I asked, he just had me driving through the parking lot at the time. I asked, well, can you say something to the manager about this, or is there any way that you can, on behalf of the city? He says, no, you have to report that to code enforcement. So he's not able to go in and say, hey, your sprinklers aren't working right, you're wasting a lot of
He
water.
can do that, and we'll advise them to do that.
Well, I came back the next
I
day.
mean, that's just, there's law, there's order, and then there's common sense. Also.
Yeah,
That's more of a common sense.
Right.
Just go in there and, as a courtesy, please have your sprinklers are watering the pavement, please turn them on.
Yeah, they were
That's all.
closing at the time. I came back the next day and they were actually resurfacing resurfacing the parking lot. And I talked to the manager and I had to really press the point that they weren't working properly. He says, oh, that's, somebody else's
We don't
problem or
care,
whatever.
yeah.
And I said, well, these guys are redoing the parking lot. You might want to turn them off now so they don't come on tonight and ruin what they just did. And that prompted her to research and find out what the valve was. I said, no, the valve's got to be inside your building. This is your water. This is you. And so I had to explain to her what her level of responsibility was to wasting water for one thing, but also that she did have control of her property.
And there's a side issue to Family Dollar, which is we made requirements when we allowed them to locate there. One of the requirements was that it would be a street-facing business to aid pedestrian impact, for pedestrian impact. But they closed that door and they put racks in front of it. And I talked to him about it and said, wait a minute, because we were not happy about Family Dollar, but we said, what the heck, we're stuck with it now. They immediately, they agreed to do it, that it would be street-facing door, and then they immediately, upon opening, refused to do it. They closed it off with a bunch of shelving, and I said, I think the door is supposed to face the street, because this is a part of our pedestrian setup here, and they said, nobody told me. And they've never fixed it since then, even though I complain every time I go in there, and I don't shop there very much, and the temperature in their freezer is way too high. There's so many health code violations, and the door
We're aware of
particularly,
that here.
the door particularly, and I feel like we let them come in and then they just do whatever they wanted. The same way Dollar General gets to store the cardboard outside and it blows all over the neighborhood. And it's happened ever since they opened, even though we've complained nonstop to them about it. So both of those, because they're chains, they just don't care. They just don't care. And
I'll tell you, there are a lot of other businesses that are not chains that also don't care.
I have that same sense.
We're communicating with all of them, and we
sense,
will.
but you would think Family Dollar would at least bend a little to make it work, but they don't care.
So
And
we
he
have,
said, "I
so
don't
we
care
do have
to me."
the basics of what more detail that you would like to see or hear about, so that we can inform you, and educate you and then advise you on what we need to do for, future code.
Yeah, in the
Exactly.
future, if we let a chain in, we've got to hold their feet to the
We
fire.
will
Well,
do
we have to
that.
hold all businesses.
Yes.
Well, but
Same.
particularly, you think they've got the money to do it, they just choose not to. It's
Well,
different.
I would say a neighbor nearby here has more than enough money to do whatever they want, but they chose not to. They do, but they chose not to. That's just
Is
life.
that the end of it?
All right, well, thank you, I appreciate y'all coming out. If you're interested in code enforcement, May 4th, we're gonna
May
have
the
that
fourth
meeting.
be with all of us.